Hello, and welcome back to the ninth episode of Greek Speaks. This week we start talking about the children of Zeus and the second generation of Olympians. So we are done with the first generation and the historicalness, mythology of how the universe gets started. And so we get to go to, the myths about humans and all that stuff, which is fun. I feel like there's more to talk about with the children of Zeus because they're a little bit closer to human ideas and society. So these episodes are going to get a little bit longer, which I'm fine with because I like doing this. And they're a lot more likable than Zeus and his siblings. They still do objectively terrible things, but if you ask a random pool of a bunch of people and they had to say, "Hey, who's your favorite Greek god?" Most classics majors at least would say one of the second generations of Olympians. Most people, you would get a bunch of Hestias and Hades because they're the chill ones. But besides those two, you would get mostly the second generation. So this week we are talking about Athena. It's going to be a lot longer of an episode because I love Athena. She's my favorite goddess, as you can tell, because every time I talk about her, I get very, very excited. So this episode will be a bit longer, but again, I find the children of Zeus a little bit more interesting. To start off, Athena is the goddess of wisdom and everything that goes with your mind, so logic, rhetoric, stuff like that. She's also the goddess of war, but not bloodshed like Ares. She's the goddess of strategic war. So famously, she inspires Odysseus to make the Trojan horse. She is also the goddess of the city, so she is very city oriented, and especially around Athens. The two kind of making thing she's goddess of, if that makes any sense, is carpentry on the male side and weaving on the female side. And this is something really important about Athena, is she is androgynous. So she's a female goddess, but she's very much in the realm of men, and we'll get to that in a couple minutes. Her attributes are as a goddess of war, shield, spear, helmet, stuff like that. And then also owls, which I love owls because of Athena. Owls were actually the stamp of the Athenian coin at one point, so it's very important to Athena, and it's very important to Athenians in general. And that actually, the owl might connect to her Homeric epithet of gray-eyed, because A, it's a wisdom sees all kind of thing, and B, that gray eyes are just very striking. And a Homeric epithet, by the way, because of the way that Homer composed the Iliad and the Odyssey, they were sung, and so you would have to get a meter going, so how Shakespeare writes his plays. And so to fit that meter, they would put things near people's names, so Zeus who bears the Aegis, Great Athena, stuff like that. Again, I like getting sidetracked because I love this character, and she has so many different ways she ties into everything mythology based. But I will try to stay on topic, I promise. She is the daughter of Zeus and Metis. Metis is the titan of logic and kind of just mentalness. And there's a prophecy that says, hey, Metis is going to bear Zeus a kid who's going to be a girl, and he'll be fine. And then she's going to bear him a boy, and that boy will rise up and kill him. Great. Get that theme in there again. Zeus freaks out, and it's oh, if I swallow my wife, my pregnant wife, she won't bear me children. And so he does this, and one day Zeus gets a huge headache, and Hephaestus smacks him on the head with an axe, and out pops Athena fully grown and armed. That's a weird myth. Everything about mythology is weird. This is what I'm doing for the rest of my life. Oh boy. She is one of the three virginal goddesses, along with Hestia and Artemis. She's the only one who has kids, though. Not in, the actual way you have children, but essentially, one day Athena is walking on the Acropolis of Athens. Either Hephaestus or Poseidon gets the hots for her. He ejaculates on her leg, and she takes a piece of wool and wipes it off and throws it on the ground. And out pops a baby named Arachne, and he becomes the first king of Athens. And the Athenians thought that they were descended from him, and because he springs up from the rocks of the Acropolis, they also spring up from rocks in the Acropolis. And so they have this word called autochthonic, which literally means just springs up from the rocks. Nobody in mythology ever has a normal birth story. No. Mostly because if it's normal, it's not mentioned. I've never heard a weird birth story for Ares or something. On the Acropolis, it has multiple temples to Athena, and her in different capacities. So there's one of Athena Poliad, which is Athena of the city, and that's one of the most important parts of Athena, which we will be back to. And she also has one of Athena Nike, which is Nike's victory, and so that was a war area. And then most famously, the Athena Parthenon, which was her capacity as a maiden, and it's really big and beautiful, and I love the Parthenon so much. I said earlier that she has a bit of androgyny to her because she is a female goddess in a male's world, especially compared to her other female goddesses like Hera and Aphrodite and Artemis and other goddesses that are very female oriented, and especially when compared to like Zeus and Poseidon, who are extremely masculine. So she has a lot of like contradictions to herself. So she has no mother, apparently, because she sprung fully formed from Zeus' forehead. Female, but she's a virgin. She's a female, but she's a warrior. So, again, very androgynous. And this comes back with Dionysus, but in the opposite way of, like, he's a god, but he displays very femininely and stuff like that. This is really portrayed in the Oresteia, which, very long story short. Agamemnon has a son named Orestes. And then Orestes kills Clytemnestra, and Orestes is put on trial by the Furies, which are underworld people. And so Athena, at one point, literally is just like, I cast my vote for Orestes because I didn't have a mom, and I turned out fine. It's a good story, and it's a good play. It's the most feminist play in the world. And so she very much represents, like, the city and the status quo and the patriarchy compared to like the Furies, who represent femininity and being like, hey, you murdered a person. So along the lines of her being a male person, kind of, she is the protector of heroes. She pops up in many hero myths. Most notably Perseus. She helps him slay Medusa. She kind of creates Medusa. We'll get to her in a minute. Hercules, she helps out with the Stygmalion bird trial. She gives him a bunch of like bronze bells that Hephaestus makes, and so he shakes them, and the birds go everywhere. Jason, she helps build the Argo. Achilles gets really mad at Agamemnon, and Athena pops down from Olympus, like, hey, don't kill your commanding officer. That might be a good idea. And then most famously, Odysseus. Pretty much everything. The Odyssey is great. Read the Odyssey. She also is a huge part of the Athenian economy. Again, her symbol of the owl is on their coins, but also Athens very heavily relied on olive oil. That was their main export and their main source of wealth for most of, until you get to the classical period, and they have the Delian League, and that gets into another big thing. But because she creates the olive tree, it's very involved in the Athenian economy. Okay. She's also one of the more cruel gods. Not that the people who she punishes don't deserve it. Arachne, pretty famously, she turns into a spider because Arachne is like, oh, I'm better than Athena at weaving, which, if we learned anything in mythology, you don't like compare yourself to a god at all. That's how you get murdered, which was hubris, and that's, if I had to pick the most common Greek fatal flaw, it's hubris. I love Medusa's character, and yes, Athena is kind of a terrible person, but Athena couldn't punish Poseidon because he's a male god, and that's what is expected of him. At least in the original myth, there's no indication of why Athena did it. We get the sense of, like, yeah, she couldn't punish Poseidon, yes, they had sex, quote unquote. Poseidon raped Medusa, but because that, in Athena's temple, besides that, because that is a sacred area, it's sacrilegious to have sex in big air quotes there. So because there's so much just, like, leniency on why Athena punished Medusa, there's been the idea of, like, oh, if every man you look at turns to stone, then you're not going to get raped again. Oh, if, some people also take the super anti-feminist approach of, like, she was asking for it, whatever. It's very complicated, if you can't tell. So, Parthenon. I promise we will get back to this, and I'm fine with that because I love this building. There's a theory that it's a memorial of the Persian War because it was built right after the Persian War. It was built during Pisistratus's 5th century building plan, where he built up Athens, made a bunch of new buildings, including the Parthenon, including the Erechtheum or something like that. It's another thing on the Acropolis, another building on the Acropolis that has like 15 shrines in it. It's really interesting. I would go see it if you can, because it's really cool. It was designed by Ikinilos and Kilcrates, who are the architects, and they did a good job. So there's no straight lines or right angles on the Parthenon, and that just is like a natural illusion, because if you stare at a straight line for long enough, your eye makes it start sinking for some reason. And so because there's no straight lines, it always remains straight in your the pediments on it, which is the big triangular pieces on the roof. They are the birth of Athena on one side and the contest with Poseidon on the other. More just like mythology and how great Athena is. I'm biased. I will 100% say that I am biased, but I love this person. Her festival, the biggest one is the Athena. It happened every year, but there's a really, really big one every 4 years. Essentially, it is a festival to Athena, which I've said, and it is a procession to give the peplos, which is a Greek garment, to the Athena Poliad, and it's displayed on the Parthenon frieze because by the time the Parthenon had been built, the Athena Poliad had been destroyed, and so they were like, hey, we need to enshrine this really important festival on the Parthenon. The Athena Poliad it translates to Athena of the city, so that's the most important quality in which she is worshipped, because Athens likes Athens and doesn't want to get squashed, which it does multiple times. But that is Athena. She is my favorite, if you can't tell. As always, we have the Instagram at Greek Speaks, and as always, have a good week.